Welcome to Wager Talk TV. I am Kelly Stewart, joined today by the #1 soccer handicapper at Wager Talk. He is absolutely crushing. His name is Pavlos Laguretos, and he is up 200 units. You guys, we all know I make fun of soccer because I know nothing about it, but I don't need to know anything because I've got Pavlos. We're going to break it down here. We're going to get into the Champions League. We're going to talk about relegation, maybe some international stuff. And of course, some of those same game parlays that he loves to hit over at DraftKings. But first, we have a coupon code for you guys, Pavlos, Pavlos 30. That is a one-time usage code, and it never expires. It's going to get you 30% off whether you get a daily package or a one-year package. Never expires again, Pavlos 30. Pavlos, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about, before we get into this video, why you're so good at soccer handicapping, and then we're going to get into some of the situations and things that you like to play on.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I've been betting for more than 20 years. I'm 37 now. So I've spent a lot of money, won some money, lost some money, but gained a lot of experience betting on this, in these soccer matches throughout my entire life, pretty much. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but a lot of success as well. And fast forward to today, and for the past 5 years, I've been handicapping as a professional. It's been going great, and I've used all the knowledge I've been gaining, throughout the years to help others bet on the correct way. And today in this video, we're gonna give you some tips that are their general rules of thumb, if you will, some things that you have to take into consideration whenever you want to bet in soccer, because these are really important stuff that they don't get talked about as much as they should. So we got some nice tips for you today.
I love it. I'm in the same boat as you. You win some money, but you lose money. Those are the tough ways that you have to learn, but it does make us better handicappers in our respective sports. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the Champions League. I actually have heard of them, in my defense. We were talking before we went on, we could compare the Champions League to maybe the NFL as far as size goes, as far as competitiveness goes, and as far as the betting market goes over in Europe.
Yeah, the Champions League is an international competition where the best teams from each country in Europe, they fight for the title of the European champion. So it's a pretty big deal for clubs, because the Champions League offers a lot of exposure to clubs and players, and the money involved is huge for a lot of these clubs. Now, soccer teams, they don't play in a single competition like NFL teams or NBA teams, but they have league matches on the weekends, they have Cup and Champions League matches midweek, and there's also the international break that we will discuss later on. Now, just to put that into perspective, there is a lot of money to be made just playing in the Champions League alone. Now, if a team, and I come from Greece, we have small teams here with limited budgets, and for a small to mediocre team, the money that they can get from the Champions League alone, even if they lose just by getting inside the Champions League, is 15 million euros or dollars. It's pretty much the same. So that alone is a huge investment for the club, and that's why teams always prioritize the Champions League. And now they get more money for a draw, they get more money for a win, they get more money from TV rights, they get more money the farther they go into the competition. So there is a certain point where teams, they tend to overlook how they play on the weekend in favor of how they're going to play in the Champions League matches. So a prime example of that is Manchester City last season. They outright lost to Brentford in the final match of the APL simply because they didn't care about that match. They had already won the title a few weeks back, and their two matches after that game were two cup finals. So the cup final and the Champions League final. So they didn't even care about what happens in a meaningless league match on a weekend that is prior to a huge match like that. So they dropped that match, and they were minus 175 favorites. I know a lot of people that got burned by that, but they didn't read behind the lines, because City at that point, they didn't even need to win in the league. They just needed to put their reserves in, and they needed to play really well in the upcoming cup finals, and they did that. So this works both ways, because, for example, another example, Tottenham this season, they're leading the EPL, but there is a very good reason for that. They don't have any midweek Champions League distractions because they didn't qualify for it last season. So that has given them the option to always use their best starters in their weekend matches, and that's why they're on top of the league, above teams like Manchester City, Liverpool, and Arsenal. So, there's a lot of teams. As I said, they play in different competitions. For example, take Bayern Munich. They have a really bad schedule in the sense that they play a league match in 4 days from now. Then 3 days after that, they play a cup match. 4 days after that, they play another league match, and then they play a Champions League match. So, these teams, that's a brutal schedule for any side. And if they don't have the depth, they need to drop one of the competitions, in the sense that if they have a meaningless league match on the weekend, but a really strong and crucial match in the Champions League a few days after, they're gonna lose on the weekend, or they're gonna draw on the weekend. So, as a general rule of thumb, we tend to fade teams on the weekend prior to a Champions League match, and it's been very profitable for us. It's not we don't do it, in all the teams that play Champions League in a few days, but some of them are really fade worthy. And this is one of the, this is the first big tip about betting in teams that are involved in Champions League matches. Just be very careful in the weekend prior. We usually fade.
That's interesting, because what we would say in, the United States, whether it's NBA, whether it's NFL, MLB, it's kind of like a look-ahead spot, because they don't care about the team in front of them. They're focused on the bigger match coming up. I would have never known. Great information already from Pavlos coming out of the gate. Another thing that we talk about here all the time is teams that are tanking, right? It's the 2023 NFL season. I was told the Cardinals are tanking, right? In the next couple months, we're going to hear about NBA teams already tanking. But that doesn't really exist in soccer. Why is that?
Yeah, that doesn't exist because in soccer, they use, it actually matters a lot if you finish at the bottom of the league table. Now, in soccer, most leagues, like 99% of the leagues, they use a promotion and relegation system. That means that at the end of the season, the 3 teams with the worst record, they get relegated to a lower division. And that's always been the case for soccer. So, as the season progresses, and you see teams that are, in the bottom half of the league table, possibly below the relegation zone, that doesn't mean that they're gonna keep on losing, because there is no draft in soccer. In NFL and the NBA, teams, they tend to tank their seasons, because that gives them a better percentage of, to get a better pick in the upcoming draft next season. But that doesn't exist in soccer. In soccer, if you finish at the bottom 3 spots, you're relegated to the lower division, which means lower money for significantly fewer money for the clubs, significantly fewer money for the team, for the players, and it's really, really hard to get back up to the top tier division. So this is a very important factor when you're trying to bet in soccer, because there are several seemingly bad teams, usually at the bottom of the league table, that are actually playing quite well and beating the spread in the last few weeks of the season. That's because they're fighting for their very survival at that point, and they don't want to get relegated, because, as I said before, they earn considerably fewer money in those lower divisions, and it's really hard to gain a promotion back to the top league. So keep an eye out towards the end of the season. We tend to bet on underdogs that are fighting for their lives, and especially if they're playing against a team, as I said before, that has an upcoming Champions League match. Look for underdogs to grab some points, or go against the spread towards those final, matches of the season. Because if you don't know how to bet in soccer, or if you're a novice bettor, you see a team, sitting second to last, and they're playing a team that's like 5th or 6th. Logically, you would say that the team that is sitting 5th is better than the one, so I'm going to go with them. But that's a mistake, because the team that is sitting down there is, they have a fire in their in their club. They're urgent.
Absolutely. We say that
they need to get
hungry
the points.
dogs run faster, right?
Oh,
those
nice,
dogs that are, they
Exactly.
need that win. And terrible example, but I learned a lot about soccer from watching Ted Lasso. If you watch when they got relegated, and now all of a sudden my brain's coming full circle, we saw that next season they were like, holy crap, we suck. We need to suck less. And getting relegated is a really big deal in soccer.
Yeah, everybody tries to avoid that. And, every year in and year out, I wait for this specific time frame, which is around March, April, where it's the final match days of the regular season in soccer, usually. And there's a lot of underdogs that have a lot of value, and we make a lot of money towards the end of the season. So keep an eye out for the underdogs at the later stages of the season.
I love that. Could you imagine if we relegated NBA teams or NFL teams? Like, all right, Carolina Panthers, Arizona Cardinals, you guys are going down, and we're bringing back up some, either CFL or arena football team. It would be pretty hilarious. Okay, let's talk about international breaks. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. International breaks is where teams break off because some of the players go play for their national teams.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how that affects different clubs.
Okay, so much like the midweek Champions League matches or the cup distractions, there is also the international breaks where players leave their clubs and play for their respective national teams. So there are several international breaks throughout the soccer season, and they mostly last from 7 to 10 days, where each national team usually plays about 2 to 3 matches. Now, why is this important? It's important because a lot of things can happen during an international break, mainly injuries and fatigue, because these players, they don't play for their clubs, but they play for the national teams. They want to qualify for the World Cup or for the Euro Cup. So the stakes are high, and players always give it their all when they get called up to international teams. So that means extra fatigue and injury concerns. So some players, they come back injured, or they had to travel from Spain to Brazil, and then from Brazil to Mexico, and then from Mexico back to Europe. So the fatigue and injuries are always something to track during international breaks. Now, another interesting fact about international breaks is the effect that it has in clubs. And this is another unwritten rule in soccer. Now, we often see teams that are in very good form prior to the break lose some of that steam after the break. And the reason is that they lost their flow. They didn't train with their team. Some players came back injured, but that also works the other way around. As we often see teams that are in really bad form prior to a break, they play much better after the international break, and the reason is that the clubs that had the time to analyze and assess their weaknesses, and they usually come out improved after the international break. So be very careful while betting on soccer after international breaks, especially if there's Champions League right after. As an example, I'm gonna have to say that Sevilla last season, prior to the World Cup break, they had a record of 3 wins, 7 draws, and 10 losses. Now that's a win rate of just 15%. That was horrible. After the World Cup break, they went on a streak of 8 wins, 3 draws, and 2 losses. That's a 61% win rate. 15%, 61%. So it's not just the schedule or the potential managerial changes. It's the effect that I just talked about. They took the time to assess their weaknesses, worked on how to be better, and they emerged from the international break with a clear focus on what to do next. So be very careful, because the international break makes streaky teams lose that streak and makes bad teams better. So this is the third thing that you should really look out for when you want to bet in soccer.
All right, let's wrap this video up and talk about something that's gained a ton of momentum here in the United States, and I know it is in Europe as well, and those are same game parlays. Now, I understand why everybody likes them, kind of like a correlated parlay, if you will, multiple things that you like to happen within one game. So talk to me on how you use them in soccer, and one thing you need to take into consideration before betting on a same game soccer parlay.
Okay, so same game parlays is an excellent way to tiptoe your way around, low lines in a match. What we do in this situation is essentially take 2 events from the same match. For example, a minus 200 money line and a minus 200 total, which are, by the way, unplayable by themselves as singles. You pair them together for a nice minus 110, minus 120. While the 2 ingredients of the same game parlay are unplayable by themselves at minus 200, if you pair them together, you get a nice price. Now, here's a trick though. DraftKings, they offer ready-made same-game parlays, but they also allow you to create your own same-game parlay. One would expect that these 2 prices would be the same, but they are not. And quite often we see DraftKings offer significantly different prices on the ready-made same-game parlays than compared to if you make your own same-game parlay. You have to always check these things, because 10 cents here, 20 cents there, 30 cents there, it really adds up to the end of the season. Now, I have a nice example of the upcoming El Clásico, which is the Barcelona versus Real Madrid derby in Spain. It's huge. And now you can see Real Madrid or tie is minus 195, unplayable by itself. The under 4.5 goals is minus 475, unplayable by itself. Since both plays are unplayable as singles, we will take a same game parlay with both the selections. And here is where it gets really, really interesting. DraftKings, as I said before, they offer ready-made same game parlays. And the odds on this particular same game parlay, Real Madrid or tie and under 4.5 goals, is minus 160. Not great, not terrible. However, if we create our own same game parlay and pick the exact same things, the odds are minus 115, a huge 45 cent gap. Now, why would I take the minus 160 when I can take the minus 115? So always check these things because, again, 10 cents here, 20 cents there, it really adds up at the end of the season. So don't leave money on the table with this same game parlays.
Pavlos, you are incredible. You've taught me so much today, and hopefully you've taught all of the Wager Talk TV audience as well. Number one, last 365 days in soccer, up 200 units. He is absolutely crushing. Again, Pavlos, Pavlos 30. That is a one-time usage coupon, whether you want a daily package up to a 1-year package that's going to get you 30% off. And again, it never expires. Thanks, Pavlos.
Cheers.